I think maybe a way I can explain better what I was talking about is there's really I think there's a plateau in my mind is when you're doing the right things and you're hitting a plateau and then you have to change something. And it's very intentional and it's thought out. Whereas if you're drinking 3 nights a week and eating like crap, that's not hitting a plateau. Right? That's
It's
your,
hindering.
yeah, you're just you're doing something wrong in your training.
Welcome to Iron Summit, the podcast where we dive deep into the art and science of becoming your best self, blending expert insights on strength training, smart recovery, optimal nutrition, and mindset mastery to help you elevate your game. Iron Summit is brought to you by Bridge Athletic. Looking for a way to streamline your training programs and deliver exceptional results? Check out our friends at Bridge Athletic. Their platform is packed with over 300 templates and 1,500 instructional videos, courtesy of subject matter experts like Exos, FMS, and Hyperice, making program design both efficient and impactful. Our listeners can take advantage of an exclusive offer. For a limited time, get your first 30 days free and your next month at 50% off when you use code IRONSUMMIT, all caps. That's code IRONSUMMIT, no spaces, all caps, for 30 days free plus 50% off your second month at bridgeathletic.com. Check it out and start assigning custom programs directly to your athlete's mobile device.
We're live.
Max is
What's
back.
up? I am back. Short paternity leave.
Yeah. We don't
Iron Summit they're not good with the benefits.
Not yet. That's funny.
It's pretty messed up. I'm gonna file a complaint with HR.
You can talk to yourself.
I am HR.
What's the last week and a half been like?
Oh, it's awesome. It's like a ton of crazy emotions, really cool experience. The whole birth process everyone's like, it sounds so cliche and everyone's like, it's amazing, but it is. And I don't think anyone can know what that experience is like until they go through it with their own kid, but it was definitely super cool. And then being a new parent is just kind of it also sounds cliche, but everyone's like, it's going to be a whirlwind, and it kind of is. It seems like it does not seem 2 weeks ago. It seems like
crazy. 5
days ago. So time is sped up, but overall, it's awesome. We are very fortunate. She was super healthy, huge baby, almost 9.5 pounds, and she sleeps well, eats well. Can't ask for a better newborn. So hopefully she keeps it up. I don't want to jinx myself, but everything's good.
That's awesome. That's crazy. The nine.
That's a big girl, especially because they say babies at altitude are a little smaller in general. Really? Yeah, just less oxygen. I guess just not a ton, but definitely I think seeing a 9 pound, 6 ounce girl that's a big girl.
Yeah. I got a buddy that was a 10-pound baby and he's 5'4" now.
Yeah, I don't think there's a ton of correlation between your baby size and your adult size. So
yeah, that's crazy. Well, that's awesome, man. That's super exciting, and hopefully you're still getting a little bit of sleep.
Yeah, we are. We're doing good for the newborn life.
Do you feel your dad's strength kick in instantly? Do you feel a difference?
For sure. It's real. No.
You went and max bench right after?
Yeah, that's a terrible idea. No dad strength, but I have been able to get in the gym. Refusing. I'm fortunate enough to be able, with her disposition to having actual paternity leave from work, being able to get into the gym and having a wife that's supportive of doing that. So I've been getting in the gym. I went into this I'm not going to let this, I'm not going to let, I don't know, phrases, not going to let being a dad detract from my fitness goals. Obviously, I didn't work out at all for 8-9 days. I didn't really have a desire to, but when I wanted to, I got back in there and started doing it, and it feels really good. I'm going to keep being strong and jacked and being a dad.
There you go.
How have your goals changed now that you're a dad and your outlook on your own personal fitness?
I wouldn't say my personal goals really have changed. I haven't like sat down and taken inventory of it fully, but I think they kind of maybe when I tore my pec, it shifted a little bit more towards like dad goals anyway, from like trying to be a powerlifter and very performance focused, so just more like lift to look good and feel good, which is what I've been doing since I tore my pec. So maybe like it kind of preempted that, Johnny.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been just lifting like a meathead and like a bodybuilder, which is funny because that's actually like you feel really your body joints and ligaments feel good when you're lifting that way as compared to lifting like a power lifter. That
Yeah.
Those
kind
are,
of hurts.
Yeah, that's for sure.
those are good question. Do you guys like reset, the whole New Year's resolution stuff? Do you guys like set new goals usually at the start
Yeah,
of
I
the
was going to
year, or
ask
how
you
do you guys do
guys
that?
what your New Year's resolutions are.
Johnny?
I know. I think I know the answer for everyone.
Yeah, I mean, mine are very personal, business, finances, everything around that. I think in terms of like health and fitness, I just want to be like more.
So what was the goal?
Good goal. See,
I didn't really even try. Like I was just like having fun with it, lifting weights, like being a meathead, like lifting heavy and having fun. And it was like the first year that I actually didn't like really was like super hyper focused about like nutrition and training. And if I missed a workout, I was like, fuck it. Like I'll get it. I'll get it in later. Like rest is good. Like when I started doing the whole powerlifting thing, I was only doing 4 days of working out with Max. And it was so weird for me because I was just always so used to like bro splitting and bodybuilding and being in there 5 to 6 days a week. And I was like, wait, so on my fifth day, I got to do HIIT cardio. I was like, what the fuck? Like, what is this? But then it kind of like gave me like a good switch. And this was early in the year too. It was like March when we started that. So it was like time just flew by, but I was just like, yeah, like I kind of like this better. I kind of like the sustainability of like lifting hard and enjoying the process. And I feel like this year I actually like took the time to enjoy the process and I wasn't like super fixated on it. But I think for like 2025, I just want to I want to make like a good transformation and just like people look at me and they're like, damn, he's that guy. Like
I
that's
like
the
it.
kind of transformation I want. Like I just want people to look at me and be like, "Fuck, that's that guy. Like that's Johnny."
Super jacked. Well, I think there's a lot of wisdom in what you just said, and maybe a good transition into our topic for today, which is how to break through plateaus. But
Yeah,
I think you probably looked good all year and made the progress you did because you chilled out a little bit. You recovered a little bit more.
yeah,
You took the time. And also, when you say I didn't try that hard, Johnny's not trying that hard is like still counting his calories like 85% of the time. Has a program he's following and all that kind of stuff. So I want to point that it's not like Johnny sat on his ass all year. That's
and
not what
I
you're
still
saying.
had most of the year too.
Yeah.
So. I still bait my ass up, but in my terms, like I guess when you compare it to like a bodybuilding competition, contest prep, like being so hyper fixated on something, then in that case, I wasn't, I didn't try that hard, but I was still busting my ass off and it just in a different way, a new sport, new lifestyle of lifting.
I think that's much more sustainable too, though. That's like a long term, healthy for life versus healthy for 3 or 4 years. Because how many like bodybuilders or wrestlers like they, they do something crazy hard for a couple of years, and then you like, I don't know, you see them a couple of years later, and they're like, I'll never do that again. It's too many things stack on top of it in life, and they're like, it's not worth it. Um, I heard somebody talking about this the other day too. Like he was like, I want to be really good, like 90%. I'm all right with being 90% good at most things, but I
Yeah.
don't want to ever like again try to be. I think it was he used to compete. It might have been powerlifting, but he's like, I don't ever want to be like 100% into one thing again because it takes away from everything else. He's like, I'm cool with being 90%, but I had to like make that conscious choice of like, I'll be 90% good at 4 or 5 things versus all in on one thing. That because people do that where you chase it your whole life, and that's how you get Michael Jordan, Tom Brady, but you lose the balance, and you got to decide what makes sense for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think especially if you're not like doing performance enhancing drugs and you want to be super jacked, you have to take a little bit more of a long time purview because adding real muscle tissue takes a long, long time. So if you actually like letting yourself recover, being intentional with your training, you still need to train really hard, but also have like phases of it, seasons of it. You're going to, in the end, be more jacked, which is Johnny's goal.
No. I think Johnny's goal was, and quote, I'm that dude. That's what he wants to be.
Well, it was get more that dude.
I am him.
All right, real quick, Max, your goal is quick before we go to Plateaus.
I don't usually look at it on like a New Year thing. I just kind of keep doing what I'm doing. But
I knew you were going to say that.
In 2025, if it works out, well, obviously being dad, that's going to come first and foremost. But maybe look at competing in bodybuilding 2025, end of 2025, being a dad, settle in a little bit first, or early 26, like in that range.
Nice.
But take my time into it. Since I am natural, the cuts you got to do like much longer dieting process. I want to do it healthily, so then you also should do it much longer. I think it's kind of the way the sport's going, rather than doing like these 12-week brutal fat loss phases. You're doing like 6-7 months of really slow, just getting lean over a long period of time, which is much healthier for you, especially if you're a drug-free athlete. Yeah. So
when you're rooted, it's not so bad too.
Exactly, and then be intentional about that. You got to do it all right if I am going to do it. But I think that's something, maybe it's not 25, but it's like, that'll be my goals. I think it's also just like with being a dad, powerlifting is awesome, and maybe I will get back to it at some point in the future, but there is a high injury risk when you're pushing 1 rep maxes, and when you're on the stronger side of things, there's just even more injury risk because you're moving just more total weight. So I think lifting more like a meathead, I still want to be really strong and do like fun feats of strength, but rather than like how much can I 1 rep max, let's like see how many times I can bench 315, or how many times I can squat 405, or how many calories I can get on the assault bike in a couple minutes, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's cool. Do like an end. You should do a start of year and end of year combine. Create like 4 or 5 like that, and then at the end of the year retest it, and we'll do a video on it.
That'd be fun. Yeah, I don't right now would not be my. I need like another probably 2 months before I'm repping 315 for max reps on my pec.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
I could do.
So it's a great time to test it. You're gonna look great by 20.
I'll have terrible numbers on my bench.
Hey, everybody, Iron Summit plans. Do you see how many times max repped out in a year?
Yeah, What about you, Ryan?
Dude, I think I'm with you on the I don't know. I think of goals a little bit more long term. Like you got like your 1 year, 5 year, 10-year stuff. So a lot of the stay in the course, but I do think the year's like a good reset. So I don't know. Chloe and I usually sit down and kind of sit and write some goals probably tomorrow. But I think mainly for fitness right now, I'd like to get to 200 pounds.
Yeah.
But not like a sloppy 200 pounds. And the caveat to that is like, I enjoy wrestling.
It's possible for you to get to a sloppy 200, but I don't think you have that in you.
I think it's like, I want to feel good when I'm like, I want to still be able to move and do stuff because I enjoy playing sports. You know, I love going out and wrestling, jiu-jitsu, pickleball, like just going out and doing stuff and hiking, skiing, snowboarding. Like, I don't want to like feel like crap because I'm 100%. Overloading, you know? So, I don't know if that'll take a year or if maybe I do that in 6 months or it takes 3 years. But I think that's kind of my overarching goal.
What are you at right now?
Dude, the other
December night. December 1st. No, morning. Give us the morning weight first. Then we'll hear the night.
I didn't check it this morning, but after the gym, I had a meal. Not a meal, but just like a snack after the gym, some protein and carbs. I was 183. But I touched.
You worked out. Yeah.
Like, yeah,
190.
I was sweating. I touched 188 at night one night.
All right. Here's what we do, Ryan. We got to test tomorrow morning is January 1st.
That's a good point. Yeah, let's do it.
Out of bed on the scale. Send a
Oh, I'm
picture, Johnny and
eating
I.
snacks tonight. Let's go.
We need a full body picture of you, preferably nude, on the scale.
Purely for scientific purposes.
Yeah, just to make
Yeah.
sure you're not cheating.
No, it makes sense. Yeah, I got you. I'll get you a 360 angle.
Perfect. Yeah, have Chloe walk around. Make sure
Babe,
you're
what are you
not
doing with
hiding.
this video?
Sending it to Max and Johnny, all right?
All right. So now that that's over, how to break through a plateau? I think this is such a interesting topic because I think there's a lot of different ways we can go with this. But I kind of like starting with like, how do you know it's a plateau before just freaking out? Because progress isn't linear. I think it's easy because you're with yourself every single day to not see the progress as much, where it's up and down, up and down. But when you take a step back, the trend line is, up and to the right. If that's going on, just recognize like this does take a long time. Like putting on muscle, any hard goal isn't going to be something that's going to just happen instantly. And in the instant gratification world we're in, I think sometimes people are like, hey, I'm not gaining muscle, like I'm not doing well. And that's when you get like 17-year-olds hopping on gear and like ruining their systems before they even really did anything. So I think, first of all, make sure it's a plateau and get some objective data on why you think you're not progressing over a long period of time. Not like, hey, my bench didn't go up this week from last week. I'm in a plateau.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. You got to make sure it is actually a plateau, and that is the first. I'd say there's really two ways you can be tricking yourself into it being a plateau. One is you actually are making progress, and the other is you're holding yourself back, which is kind of like what plateaus are. But there are some times where you're doing everything right, and we'll get into that. Like you're really trying on everything, and you still hit a plateau, and that happens to everyone. But a lot of times people are like, oh, I just can't. Well, it's in a fat loss phase. Like I just can't get past this weight, or I can't add any more muscle. I'm just not getting any bigger, or whatever it is. But it's because of other factors in their life, not their training, or like I guess this all ties into recovery, but it's nothing like really directly correlated to training or recovery. It's more like you're just not doing enough right to be making progress. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like give us some examples of that.
Well, the biggest one I think I see a lot when it comes to health plateaus is drinking alcohol more than several times a week. That's not a plateau. You're just shooting yourself in the foot. Poor sleep habits and sleep hygiene. That's really a big one. The really obvious one is nutrition and bad nutrition. You're just not going to progress if you're training and you have bad nutrition. Doesn't matter how good your training is. Or you'll plateau. You will get those newbie gains no matter what you're eating, and then all of a sudden you hit a point where you got to start eating. So that could be a cause. So I think those are kind of the three big things I would look at.
I think one more thing I'd add to that too is like you got to understand what your main goal is and make sure you're not trying to balance a bunch of things, especially with fitness. I think that's why it's good to do phases. Like if you're trying to put on muscle tissue and then you're also running 20 miles a week, like those are really conflicting. And so it's like you got to cut off, trim the fat on some of this, not like actually trim the fat, like metaphorically trim the fat on stuff that isn't helping you, even if you enjoy doing it for something that you want more. So cutting back stuff that's conflicting with your goals. And that could be said for drinking, poor sleep, poor nutrition. But even within fitness, I think a lot of people have a hard time sticking to a goal. I mean, I've personally felt that too, where it's like you start a cut phase and then you're starting to feel small and weak in the gym, and then you revert to like more calories, or you start bulking and then you're like, nah, I don't like this. I'm not feeling good. I feel sluggish and slow and I'm putting on fluff. And then you go back. And so you just kind of yo-yo and never actually commit to that progress. I think it's something that happens a lot.
And I think maybe a way I can explain better what I was talking about is there's really I think there's a plateau in my mind is when you're doing the right things. and you're hitting a plateau, and then you have to change something. And it's like very intentional and it's thought out. Whereas like if you're drinking 3 nights a week and eating like crap, that's not hitting a plateau. Right? Like that's
It's
your
hindering.
yeah, you're just like you're doing something wrong in your training. A plateau to me is more like you've been moving in the right direction. You're moving up. Like the definition of a plateau is like it's a flat line on the way up. It's not like you didn't start going up in the first place. You know what I mean? Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think you got to kind of rule out the first part. Make sure you're not just like doing things wrong, and then we can get into ways to like break through plateaus when you are doing the right things.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, and we see it all the time. They're like, oh, well, I'm not making progress. And then they're like, I'm in a calorie deficit. And I'm like, okay, well, have you weighed yourself? Are you losing the weight? I'm not. All right, are you counting calories? No. Then how do you know you're in a calorie deficit? Right. And then people can
Yeah,
mistake
that's not a plateau.
that with like, being in a plateau. So like, I just can't make progress anymore. I'm like, well, what were you doing? And how did you gain that weight? And then why did it stop? Oh, well, I started eating 5 meals a day. Great. Were you counting the calories? No, I just started eating one more meal. Okay, then you probably hit your maintenance now. You probably need to add more food. Or you maybe have to get more intentional with the data tracking, right? And I think a lot of people think that something can only work for so long before you do have to tailor things, just like any training program can. When you're a beginner, doing 2 to 3 sets in your program might be something that helps you make progress. But then as you become more advanced, your body gets more conditioned to higher volume training loads. You probably need to start hitting 4 or 5 different, groups, four to 5 different exercises, hitting 3 to 5 different sets between each exercise, right? To give your body enough stimulus to actually continue to grow, right? And so I think a lot of people tend to make that mistake of, well, they're just kind of shooting darts in the dark and expecting it to hit. And then they're not really tracking things or staying on track by being disciplined by actually having the data, right? And they're making emotional based decisions versus like data driven decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a good point. And like you just hit like one of the common causes of like a plateau, like a lack of variety, right? Like that's why it's important to change up your training plans. Progressive overload is awesome. But that doesn't just mean adding weight to the bar. Like ideally, you keep adding 10 pounds to the bar every single week. But anybody that's lifted for any amount of time knows that that is not go on forever. You have to fight and claw and change stuff up in order to keep getting those incremental gains. That might work in the beginning. Like that variety is huge. Overtraining. I think sometimes people are overtraining and your body's just like in a constant rundown state where it's really hard to put on muscle tissue when your body's not recovering. You don't grow while you're lifting. You grow when you're sleeping and when you're feeding your body properly. Like overtraining is a huge one to look at, especially if you're somebody that's, going to the gym 6-7 days a week, which is also kind of the insufficient recovery. And then nutrition, which is also could go with overtraining as well.
Yep. Well, and I think we kind of, Johnny hit on it, like how to, with your nutrition, how to change it up and maybe break through the plateau. But, it does start with knowing what you're eating. It doesn't have to be counting your calories to a T, but just being aware of what you're putting in your body. Then you at least know what you're doing. So then you can change what you're doing, because you can't make changes to it without at least understanding kind of the baseline of what you're doing. And then more specifically on nutrition, if you are doing things right, let's say you're eating healthy, you're trying to add, I think like for the purpose of this, because you can go in so many different directions with plateaus, let's use adding muscle tissue as the example. But if you've been eating a ton of food, it's healthy, you've been hitting the adequate amount of protein and a lot of carbs and healthy fats, and you're still not, you may need to change up your nutrition, tweak, maybe go lower carb, higher fat, allow you to get even more calories in. Maybe sometimes you need to deload your gut for a week. I know that's been really helpful for me. Or even a couple weeks, like eat less. Sometimes you need to eat a little less for a little while, maybe even do like a mini cut, get a little more insulin sensitive, and then go back at it. That can really help. Because if you're just like in a massive caloric surplus for a long time, especially I find with the carbs, like if your carbs are really high for a really long period of time, you do lose a little bit of insulin sensitivity, and your gut kind of takes a beating. Changing that up Coach Miller, who I work with, is excellent at that. He'll like pull my carbs down and increase my fats to kind of change up. Like my protein stays kind of constant, but then it's just a different input for the body, and I'll respond really well to that. And then we'll switch back, and then I'll respond well to that. So I think those are some specific examples, at least for adding muscle tissue, what you can do on the nutrition side of things to try and break through a plateau.
I think it's a great point too. Like I think about a lot what Waddy was talking about, where he's like, my first time competitors, I just shock their system, send them a bunch of calories and blow them up. He's like, they usually get pretty chubby like the first gaining phase. But he's like, then your body gets used to being able to intake that many calories. And whether that's like bro science or science, like I think it makes sense. We think of it in training, like you need novel stimulus. Sometimes your nutrition needs that too. You can only cut calories or increase cardio so long before you drop too low. You got to have other levers to pull, and you got to shock your system different ways with nutrition as well. And just like, I mean, Johnny's been talking about a lot too, is like tracking it allows you to be able to change it, because I think too many people try to change 5 different variables at once. You don't know what's affecting it. You need to change one at a time and understand what like levers you're pulling and what you're changing, instead of like rip everything. And that's where it's hard, because we don't live in a vacuum. But as much of a vacuum as you can make for these like fitness goals, I think the quicker you'll see the progress within your context of your busy life.
Yep. Anything to add on nutrition, Johnny?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you said is straight on. I think that there's people that respond better to higher carb, lower carb. Bringing up insulin sensitivity is always great. Doing a mini cut sometimes when you're doing an off-season phase, trying to gain muscle, it's kind of like you have to change the maintenance on your body, right? It's kind of like giving your body a new oil filter. It's, bringing up that insulin sensitivity. That's a great way to think about it in a simple term. It's just removing a gunky filter and putting in a new one, right? Letting your body start to process some of those nutrients a little bit better again, give your gut health a little bit of a break. Usually within like the bodybuilding world, they say like when you increase fats and then you have carbohydrates, people who have like fast metabolisms, a higher fat intake makes the carbs stick, right? It's just an analogy. It's not like a real thing, but when you increase fats and you have a high carbohydrate intake and the person has a fast metabolism and they're like kind of like an ectomorph build, increasing fats can help stick some of those carbs, right? And so doing different things like that, playing with your nutrition, right? Some people do better with fats, some people do better with carbs. It's all genetic too. Like some people are naturally higher blood glucose, and some people, it runs in their family. They just can't consume a lot of carbs, but they can grow well with healthy fats and protein.
One thing I would add to this, and I think it's good, and Ryan, you sent a study on this just the other day, but one thing people could try is also just increasing your protein even more. I think like more and more data and science is coming out on like really high protein intake actually helps build muscle, helps maintain muscle, and is probably just good for you. Like up to like 2 pounds per pound, 2 grams per pound of lean mass, which that's a ton of protein. So, and I think all that was like also like the bro science, and it's kind of the real science is catching up to it, which I think it's always bro science and real science are the same thing, because it's just like what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's just different ways to look at it. So I always think it's funny when people argue over it, because it's really like it is the same. But I think let's put it this way, the literature is catching up to the like kind of more like thought process. I know a lot like people thought it was crazy when they had me on like 450 grams of protein when I was in college, but it worked. And I do feel good eating a lot of protein, like really high numbers, and then it's like the literature is catching up to that. So I would say I would add to something you could try if you're stuck in a plateau. Just try eating a ton of protein. You obviously got to stay hydrated. Don't be an idiot about it. Don't eat 1,000 grams of protein a day. Try some more protein and try and get it from whole sources.
Yeah, I think so. Just quick recap on nutrition, like caloric surplus is going to be important. Make sure you're tracking your macro breakdown. You might need to adjust that based off of your genetics and how you're responding to different macros. Meal timing, I think fueling your workouts for performance and playing around with, heavier carbs before workouts, maybe intra-carb workouts, good post-workout nutrition, good hydration, and then always making sure you're tracking definitely will be helpful when you're in a plateau.
Yep. And now, so second thing you can change, again, we'll use the adding muscle tissue plateau, is changing your stimulus.
Yeah.
So, and this is like the age old Arnold shock the muscles, which is very bro science. But the reality is if you do any stimulus for too long, your body becomes very comfortable with it and you drive less adaptation. You can get really jacked doing the same thing over and over and over, but you will kind of like over time, your body will just get really good at doing that thing. So then that's probably one of the biggest tips I would say is, and I think this is people who haven't worked with a coach or don't have like a big or extensive understanding of training. This is probably the most common mistake is like, they're just like used to hitting their bro split of like 3 to 4 sets of 15. They're not really paying attention to tempo, and at a certain point, tempo or we'll get into that, but tempo or other aspects of their sets and reps, and kind of get stuck. So change your stimulus, change up your sets and your rep schemes. If you want to be nerdy how you say that, you can train more neurological stimulus or metabolic stimulus. So really, that just means changing your sets and your rep schemes, changing your rest times. What do you guys, anything else?
Yeah, rep times, program. I think tempo is such a huge one but know where you're at with that. Like, obviously, if we're talking to somebody that hit a plateau, it's probably somebody that's been lifting a while. But I think sometimes people are like, do I need to mess with tempo stuff? And it's like they're very early on in lifting. It's like if you're still like putting on muscle and putting on weight on the bar every week, don't change it until you start to plateau, and then you start to change it. Like, progress is still progress, and like we were talking about earlier, like sometimes this is going to be a lot slower than what you want or what you think is like. Social media just is like, oh man, 20 pounds a week. It's just not, that's not how it goes.
Yeah, I think so. There's like changing your sets and your rep schemes is like the broadest way to look at it. And then you can go, I think like the meathead term is like intensifiers for your sets and reps. And like the number one there would, like you said, Ryan, would be tempo. And that is a way to intensify every rep you're doing. If you do a 225-pound bench and you're just like whipping that thing around, bouncing it off your chest, and then you try and do like 2 to 3 seconds down, you're going to be like, wow, that is a lot harder. So you're intensifying the weight. And I think like using intensifiers, I know that's when I like my brain, like I was actually one of the first times I worked out with Waddy. I went in, thought I was strong, thought I was jacked. I went in, he made me feel like an absolute bitch on the leg extension with like 40 pounds on it. Because he did all these crazy intensifiers. He was having me do like 5-second negatives and like 5 fast ones. I was like, my brain exploded. I was like, this is the next level. This is the promised land.
Do you think he was just trying to like earn your respect with that workout, or was it like consistently like that for the next couple workouts? Like, was it like a punch in the mouth?
It was
and like,
that's Waddy. Waddy is like all about intensifiers. We gotta get you in train with Waddy, right? He's like has these crazy set and rep schemes. More than anything, it was to like humble me,
yeah,
probably, but then also show me like, hey, this is how you lift.
okay.
Like you control the weight. You don't need to put on as much weight as you can. And like what's a lot of people, a plateau they hit is like you're lifting with your buddies in high school. I saw a funny meme the other day. It was like, talk to the average high schooler about like, what's your split? It's like, what am I going to max out tomorrow? Like just complete ego lifting, zero tempo, load that leg extension up with as much weight as you possibly can, do as much reps as you can, willy nilly. Like that's the way a lot of people lift, and you will hit a plateau. And so then adding the intensifiers, changing the tempos, drop sets, ascending weights. I don't know. What other intensifiers, Johnny?
Myo rep matches. You can do rest pause sets. You can do incomplete rest method. There's so much. It's like pick your poison. They all hurt.
Yeah, they're intensifiers. They're called that for a reason. Yeah. Well, and I think that's also where I had a lot of fun, like lifting, is when I started incorporating that stuff, because it wasn't just like moving away from point A to point B. It was like there's different ways to do that. I can do like a 3-second negative and a 2-second pause on my chest for 3 reps, and then do 3 fast reps, and then go back to that. Like you could just like change.
Yeah.
You start to have fun with it. But I think it's like one of the best ways to break through a plateau is adding intensifiers to your reps and sets. I think it's just very effective and it's fun, which makes something effective if you enjoy doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then kind of last one, deloads. Like if you're really overtraining, I think one of the best ways to know if you're overtraining, like if you're getting hurt a lot, if you're getting sick a lot, if you're like very low energy all the time, might be time to look into a deload. I think looking at your overall stress levels too, like your your stress isn't just your stress of your workout. It's like what's going on in your life, what's going on in work, relationships, whatever. Like if it's a busy time in your life and everything's stacking up, maybe a deload will help you with your training and help you break through that plateau instead of just like redlining for weeks and months straight.
Yeah. It's a little counterintuitive. It's like, how do I make progress? Do less. But that's
Less
like,
is more.
sometimes that is the case. A lot of the time, especially if you are one of the people like this is like you truly are hitting a plateau. You're doing everything right. You've been training hard. You're eating right. Then you probably just you need a deload. You need to take a week easy. I know, John, you just did a little bit of a deload. Take us through like what is a way like what does a good deload week look like? General principles.
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on the person, how tired you are, how fatigued you feel. If you're like smashed, your joints hurt, you feel lethargic, you don't really have the motivation to go into the gym, everything hurts, you're just not recovering well, you should probably take the whole week off from training, right? Now, if you're feeling like you're not progressing, you're starting to lose like a little bit of strength on some sets, top sets, you're not really hitting that nine or fifth, ninth, sixth rep that you're usually hitting, and you're kind of starting to feel a little bit achy. It really depends on the person and how they feel. Right. In my case, my personal experience and what I do, right, I never really let my body run down to the point where like I'm getting sick or I feel so lethargic that I'm not motivated to go into the gym. And so what I do is I reduce my load by 20%. Right. And so it's funny. I did that the other day. I was squatting 405 and deadlifting like 455 and 500. People were like, "That's 20% reduction." I'm like, for me, it is, right? It's like I was doing sets of 575 on deadlifts, and so for me to reduce 20%, is going down to 475, 495, right? And so your body, just that reduction in volume, you give your joints a rest, right? You give your body a little bit of an ability to kind of almost use that time to try out new workouts and kind of see where you feel best. Like, for example, this whole last week, I've kind of just been messing around. I've been trying different movements, kind of trying new things that I might like for the next training block and looking at movements that feel good for me that I want to implement into my next training programming, and then lowering half the sets, that I was doing. So instead of like 4 sets, I'm doing 2 sets. My overall top 2 sets, right, I'm just doing 80% versus like 90 to 100% of what I was doing, and I feel good.
So
It's
deload
like,
doesn't have to mean
yeah, doesn't mean stop lifting at
deload.
all.
Yeah, that you don't have to do nothing. That you can do that, but it can also mean just like reduce your workload.
Yeah, which
I do.
sometimes vacations, like a 1 week vacation, like that is the only deload you need for the whole year, because it's like you're completely off. Because hotel gyms with like cables and like 50-pound dumbbells, that already is like crazy deload
It's a
for you.
deload. Yeah, it's a
Yeah, it's
deload.
crazy. Like that's probably the most extreme deload that I'll have during the year is a vacation, and I just don't have like full gym access.
Dude, that's
Good
funny you
point.
say that. I was thinking that too, is like most people probably don't need like a true deload. Usually life kind of gets in the way. And then it's like, that's a good time to deload. If you got a good vacation, you're going to spend time with your family, or you're in a place where you're not sure you're going to have great training, great time to
You
deload.
have a newborn child.
Baby.
You have a newborn baby. Yeah. So like, I also think that's the importance of like proper programming too, right? Like doing optimal sets throughout the week. You're taking the rest days that you need and you're hitting your nutrition. Deloads aren't going to be as important, but there are some people that are just like stupid and like, I'm not going to miss a day. I'm going to keep pushing every single day. But I do think a vacation's a great time to very easy time to get in your deloads, and probably makes it vacation more enjoyable. And it's probably going to help you when you get back.
Yep. Yeah. So deloading, that's the last tip for breaking through a plateau.
Love it.
That and anabolic steroids. Just kidding. Don't do that.
At Iron Summit, we are about getting everything we can out of our workouts and everyday lives. If you aren't wearing a pair of barefoot or wide toe box trainers, you are leaving gains on the table. The Sashi Athletics Ronin Ichi Minimalist Trainer is a perfect barefoot shoe. Not only does it perform like other major brands on the market, it is actually good looking. Even my wife says so. Get a pair today for 10% off with the code IronSummit10. Link is in the bio.